Thank you for coming to our session today. And the title of our session is Why Having UDOIT Matters in Digital Learning, UDL and Accessibility Considerations for Instructional Designers and Technologists. Today, I want to first take a moment to introduce the presenters that we have. I am Nancy Swenson. I'm the one who's speaking right now. I am an Associate Instructional Designer here at the Center for Distributed Learning at UCF.
And I'm Tinsley-Kim, and I'm an Instructional Development Specialist, maybe something along the lines of a Technologist, so be happy to talk more about that as we go along.
And I'm Jacob Bates. I'm the Tech Rangers team lead and also the lead developer on the UDOIT tool that you'll be seeing a little bit later.
Good morning. This is Wendy Howard. I'm the program director of UCF's new Pegasus Innovation Lab, or iLab for short.
Okay, let's jump into today's agenda. The bullet points that you see up on there are directly from the advertisement that we put out for our session. We're going to be covering digital accessibility and UDL needs, stats, and trends, how instructional designers and technologists can guide their faculty in course design with UDL and accessibility, and what is UDOIT, how can this tool further guide the UDL/accessibility conversation. And we're also then going to follow that with a demonstration of the UDOIT tool and question and answers. All right, let's jump right in. All right, turn to Karen.
Yeah, you've probably, if you've been paying attention at all on what's going on in the digital world, there have been a number of lawsuits. If you go to the website at the bottom, you can see them all in the last decade or more. But these are just some of the highlights that maybe you have heard of. Accessibility is serious business. And it's also becoming more acknowledged broadly. This year, it moved up, Accessibility and Universal Design for Learning moved up to number 2 in our 2018 Key Issues in Teaching and Learning through ELI 7 Things You Should Know About. The quote I've got over on the left side of the screen is also from one of our UCF instructional designers, and I think she made a remarkable point that just in the last 3 years, accessibility has moved from, number 12 to number 2. So this is definitely something we need to be talking about.
Okay, and back in 2008, our legislature recognized Universal Design for Learning in the Higher Education Opportunity Act. And in that act, they defined Universal Design for Learning as a scientifically valid framework that provides flexibility in the way student or information is presented, the way students respond to or demonstrate knowledge and skills, and the way students are engaged with information. And the idea of Universal Design for Learning is that it will reduce barriers in instruction and also maintain high achievement expectations for all our students. Some of you may be familiar with the CAST organization, CAST.org. They have developed a set of guidelines for Universal Design for Learning, and they have been studying, CAST.org has been studying the way people learn for many years. And they found that the way in which we learn varies as much as our fingerprints. And they have come up with a set of guidelines. They divide into 3 key areas: engagement, representation, and action and expression. Engagement meaning that students vary in what motivates them in their learning. And so it's important to vary the types of activities that students participate in, such as sometimes have group work, sometimes have independent work. And on to the next section, representation. It's important to vary the way content is represented and to vary the way that it's represented so that they also will have opportunities to learn in the way that they wish to learn or that's best for them with the different types of content that's offered. And just as students vary in the way that they learn and perceive information, they also vary in the way that they demonstrate their knowledge. So it's important to offer different things, like maybe if you're doing an essay exam, also sometimes have multiple choice true false, whether it be allowing them to demonstrate what they've learned through video, whatever the case may be. But the most important point is that I want to make about this slide is I encourage you to learn more about Universal Design for Learning through going to the CAST.org site. But also you'll want to note that there is a higher education version of this site as well, and I'll tell you more about that here in just a little bit. It's called UDL on Campus. The next slide, I was hitting the wrong keyboard here. The next slide, it's a bit of a busy slide, and just a few key points that I want to make about this slide. It's from our executive information system. We have a database that stores and keeps track of how large our student body is, how many courses are being offered, how many faculty are teaching in any particular semester, et cetera. But we also keep track of how many students are registered with Student Accessibility Services on our campus. Our campus has changed registered from connected. So how many of our student body members are connected with Student Accessibility Services? And in our case, in the fall of 2018, I'm just going to pull out a few key numbers here. We had over 68,000 students, and a little more than 3% of that population, of those 68,000 students, were connected with Student Accessibility Services. And that in that same semester, this semester, we had over 7,600 course sections offered. 43% of those course sections had students that were connected with our Student Accessibility Services office. And in that semester, as you'll see over to the right, the big bold print there, we had 74% of our faculty were impacted by that 3%. So you look at that 3%, and you think that that's a small number, but it ends up impacting 45% of the courses and 74% of our faculty. And I'm sure you found that your institution, as we have here, and research has shown this as well, that many people choose to not register with Student Accessibility Services when they get to the college level. So that number, 3% here at UCF, is probably much larger than that. So we encourage you to learn more about the information and numbers that you might have at your institution, but also keep in mind that although it may seem sometimes as we're designing, developing our online courses that there aren't many students out there that are needing accommodations or special needs, it is important to know that they are out there, that they do impact our students, and that the design principles that we're going to be talking about today are just good design principles that help everyone. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next slide.
Yeah, so, and this is Karen again. Getting the conversation started with your faculty and probably even amongst your colleagues about accessibility and universal design. As we probably all know, and maybe even feeling right now, it can be overwhelming. And making sure that there is knowledge that there are not just the faculty member and not just the instructional designer, but that there are, there's a team that can work with this and help all of us feel, shameless plug here for UCF, that we are part of a winning team, that we can reach our students and we can be more effective in our instruction. Let's see, and let me find out how to move forward. Thank you, Nancy. Just to kind of get a little more orientation on some of the benefits, and you probably, again, know these, but it's just worth, I think, thinking about that, again, the effort to make that course content more accessible for everybody does take some work, but it's worth it. All students potentially are able to feel more welcome, more invited, and digitally, if you will, at home. The student retention rates should be dropping. That they're are not dropping, but that we're not having them drop, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Especially the students with disabilities. Now, part of my job is to coordinate with Student Accessibility Services and the instructional designers and Jacob's team, the Tech Rangers, and try to help get that course content in order for the semester, working with the faculty member and everybody else we can work with. But sadly, what often happens is the student gets in there the first week of class and they go, I can't access this content. I'm dropping this course. That's really frustrating because I've already started to ramp up and helping the faculty member get that course ready. And then, I hate to say it happens more often than it should. So if we can be prepared, that student will probably stick around. The other thing that related to that, if the student can't get the course that they need because they can't get access to the content and it disrupts their academic flow, that's a problem that should be prevented. That's something we don't like to see, any of us, right? And of course, just general student academic success, that students say, hey, I'm learning, I'm moving forward in my academic pursuits, and probably, it may not be upfront, but you're less likely to get complaints about students not being able to get to your content. Instead, hopefully they're going to say, that was a great course. I got to everything I needed, and I didn't have any issues trying to move forward in the course. And then if you're having to come into the camp that I look at each beginning of each semester, where we do have a reactive need, it is so wonderful, and it doesn't happen often enough, I confess, where I say, hey, you know what, your course looks good, no problems, we can move forward. More often than not, there's a lot to be done, and it's very stressful for everybody. So reducing that stress and being proactive is where that conversation needs to be encouraged to be going, that there are benefits. Now, talking more about that team approach, again, it's not just the instructional designer, it's not just the faculty. There are plenty of other resources and people to help you. I would definitely encourage you to get familiar with your library, and maybe even if you have an accessibility librarian. I know here at UCF, I use the library chat very often. I'll say, hey, I'm looking for this content, and is there a digital form? Is there a video that's already properly captioned? And if they have it, they'll let me know, and I can forward that to the instructor, and it's just wonderful when that is able to happen. But sometimes it's just verifying that it doesn't exist, and then we need to move forward on how to make that content accessible. I've also had situations where, faculty are doing something new for the first time, and for example, I have a faculty person that was trying to figure out how to make a recording, and he couldn't get a decent microphone. But he finally contacted the appropriate offices, and he got the right microphone, and it's working much, much better. We can get his stuff captioned much more easily. And then, as Nancy already mentioned, please refer to those external resources, with your colleagues and others. There are listservs for universal design, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which Jacob will touch on, and UDOIT. And then, of course, TopKit, which is why we're here. We're building that information to help serve you, and we look forward to expanding on that for you. All right, so just to wrap up the point here, we need to be continuing that conversation. Very often, it's not a short one. It's something that needs to take place over time. So encourage being proactive with your faculty. And I would just say from experience, invite your faculty to a conversation about universal design and accessibility, and listen. More often than not, they're stressed out, you're stressed out, everybody's just kind of, up in arms potentially a little bit. And a lot of listening can often bring about some wonderful results, because very often it's just getting it out there and talking about it, and then you can move together as a team more effectively. And so as Jacob's going to tell us and show us in a short bit, how UDOIT can help narrow the scope of that conversation so that it's a little more pointed and you're facing the considerations for that particular course content.
Okay, just a few quick slides on course design and UDL. One of the things that we talked about earlier is that it's important to create a welcoming environment for your students. One of the things that we're required to do here at UCF is to have a statement in our syllabus regarding accessibility and making sure that our students are connected with our Student Accessibility Services Office, and if they're not, to know how to contact that office. So that's an important thing to keep in mind for your students as well. Also, we encourage you to, not only as you're design developing courses or possibly teaching yourself, take your course as a student. Make sure that as you navigate your course, you find that it's a welcome environment, you're clear in how you're navigating through the course, your students know where to go, they know where to get help if they run into issues of any kind in your course. And a few other things like we were talking about before, some good UDL principles is to offer the content in a variety of ways and your assignments in a variety of ways, and also to offer a variety of assessments. And finally, as an ID, when you are working, either when you're building courses or if you're delivering some faculty development on your campus, keep in mind, as I was saying earlier, most of what we're going to be talking about today and what's included in UDOIT is good design principles. For example, always make sure that your faculty members are, or at least encourage them to use headings in their courses. They should be using like H1s, H2s, et cetera, in their courses. Also, another great UDL principle is chunking content, breaking large bits of content into smaller pieces, makes it easier to comprehend. Also, alternative text for images, use captioned videos, properly captioned videos. And if you're using tables in documents, make sure you include those row and column headers, and also color contrast. All the things I mentioned there, with the exception of chunking content, are included in the UDOIT tool that Jacob's getting ready to demo. And I just want to say, from an ID perspective, this has been a wonderful tool and to use as I'm helping faculty design develop their courses. We not only created the tool to be faculty facing and to be faculty friendly and one that they can use on their own, I, as an ID, can use it as I work with my faculty members to point out potential issues that may cause problems for their students. And one, show them how they can correct those things themselves, but also to show them how to do that, and moving forward in their other courses, hopefully work with them to avoid any potential issues that they might have in their courses moving forward. And in the end, helping their students. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jacob, who's going to be doing a demo on UDOIT.
All right, thank you. UDOIT, if you haven't heard of this before, it stands for the Universal Design Online Content Inspection Tool, and we made the C silent because we really wanted to call it UDOIT. If you haven't heard of it, it is a self-service tool for scanning an online course in the Canvas learning management system, scanning that course for possible accessibility issues. So you could think of it kind of like a virus scan, or anything like that. So it is an open source tool, so it's completely free to use for anybody. So this isn't a sales pitch or anything like that. It's it's free. So let me just switch over to.
It only works in web or in Canvas.
Correct. Yes, it only works in Canvas. So this is just a little test course that I've set up in our instance of Canvas. UDOIT normally is available in the course navigation, and it is only visible to the teacher or above. Like, basically, it's not visible to students, but it's visible to everyone else in the course. So when you first get to UDOIT, there's a little description of what UDOIT does, how it was created, that kind of thing. And there is an important note that it's to be used as a guide, not as a certification. This is a computer that's trying to interpret what a human has created, so it's not going to be 100% correct. And actually, if you click on this "What does UDOIT look for?" button, you can see we've listed out errors and suggestions. Errors are things that we're pretty sure are issues. Suggestions are things that we're not quite sure about, but we want to report anyway, just in case.
Oh, can you show them more info?
Yes. So there's also this more info button. If you click on that, you can actually see a description of, what is this error? Why is it important? And then also links out to some resources. We have our own at CDL. We have our own pages with information about these different issues, but we also link out to the WCAG standard, which can get really dry. But if you really want to know exactly why this is a standard, I highly recommend reading those. And then if you know HTML, it'll show you here's incorrect and correct examples, but that's not required really. It's just there if you happen to know that. So to use the tool, you just select the portions of your course you want to scan. We usually recommend, if you are scanning your course for the first time, you might want to just start with pages or just start with one section, just so it's not overwhelming. But this course is really small, so I'm just going to leave everything checked and go ahead and scan it. So it just takes a second to scan a course, and it is important to stay on the page while it scans. Okay, so now that it's done, you can see this small course had 53 errors and 61 suggestions. This course I've actually been pulling in content whenever whenever we have issues with different types of content, we collect them in here. So it's collected quite a few errors. At the top, you can see a report summary. This was actually based on user feedback. We added this in so that you could just see, I have 29 videos with no closed captioning, or I have 3 tables that don't have any headers. So it's just a very quick way to view this, because one of the main things that we see is that a course might have 1,000 errors and they're all the same error over and over again. So this is very quick, especially for instructional designers, to show the faculty member, hey, don't freak out. It's just the same problem over and over. And, once you figure out how to fix it once, you can fix it the rest of the time. So if we scroll down, you can see that these sections didn't have any issues. So we still show you, hey, these are good. We don't just hide them. As far as files go, it only scans HTML files. And I'll show you a little bit more about what it does with the rest of the files later. But let's go down to this page, Welcome to the Test Course. This is where I've kind of curated some horrible HTML. So the first one I'll show off is no table headers found. So you can view the source of the issue. You can see a preview. You can see the HTML if you're interested in that. But we also have this really cool feature that we built in called UFixIt. And if you click on that, this allows you to fix the issue from within UDOIT. So I can just say, I want the first row of this table to be a header row. And so I hit submit, and then it fixes it.
And do you mind backing up a little bit and just showing us the page that you're looking at?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, clicking on the title here, you can go to the page itself. And if we scroll down, we can see the styling has changed a little bit on this row, and that's just the Canvas default styling. It'll center and bold the text whenever it is a header row. So if it looks like that, it's probably a header row. But if you change it to look like that, it doesn't make it a header row. That's always the caveat I put in there. But so let's keep going. I'm just going to touch on some of the biggest things here. Really, I mean, obviously you can spend hours going through every single issue in the course. It's not a quick process. We try to make it as quick as possible.
It's a lot faster than doing it manually.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, that's why we made this tool. Exactly. Because we were actually lazy. We didn't want to, because manually going through all these courses is extremely time consuming, and we developed an internal tool that helped us speed up the process. And then Karen had the idea of like, well, what if we made this available to faculty? How hard would that be to make it user friendly? And we're like, well, actually, it wouldn't be that bad. So
it only took a year.
It only took a year. Yeah. That's what we consider not bad in the educational space. Exactly. Okay, so we check for things like links containing text, because that's something that can be confusing for a screen reader, but it doesn't show up to visual users because there's no text there. Color contrast is actually a big one that I want to touch on. We've put a lot of work into this one, so let's view the source of this. Well, actually, when we were preparing for this presentation, we were, oh yeah, let me show you how it is on the page. Yeah, we were preparing for the presentation, we brought this up and we were like, hey, can y'all read this? And they said, oh, we're having a lot of trouble reading this, ask them after the presentation line. And we're like, well, that's actually intentional, because it's intentionally horrible, and the contrast ratio is basically 1-to-1. So if we go into UFixIt for this, you can see there's a lot more user interface here. We have a lot of different ways that we can modify this. We could go in and pick from a color palette. We could lighten up that way. We actually have lighten and darken buttons here. And you can see this whole time it's changing this ratio of the color contrast ratio. So I can actually keep darkening the red and keep lightening the gray, and now it hits the 4.4-to-1. Which I believe is the AAA, the WCAG AAA standard, but basically we're being as strict as possible, just to make sure that you do it right. And you can also, obviously, you always need to use alternate emphasis, not just color. So we allow it to set it to bold or italicized.
And that's for screen readers, I think.
Right, yeah.
Many of us aren't aware of that.
Well, yeah, for screen readers and, I mean, really for, it's just a good practice anyway. And that's actually kind of the point of a lot of this, is that it's not just accessibility, it's just a good practice. It's just a good idea. And then we can hit submit on this one. And if we refresh this page over here, you can see that the text is now much more readable. Now, design obviously is a whole other field. UDOIT doesn't make sure it looks good, it just makes sure it has the right contrast ratio. And then right here, you can actually see the next big thing I wanted to touch on is closed captioning. So we are actually detecting YouTube videos, and if I click right, no, that's not the right one. This one. Well, it's in here somewhere. Yes, YouTube and Vimeo videos. It detects if they do not have human-generated captions. So YouTube will often create automated captions for videos, and we've found those to be insufficient for educational use. Now, there is always the caveat there of the faculty member can go through, and if the automated captions are actually really, really good, then they can choose to continue using that. But we're going to flag it anyway, and you do it.
And I'll just alert you in the chat, there's been a great ongoing conversation about captioning and captioning support. So folks in the chat have been sharing who's responsible for captioning at their institution. So I just wanted you to know there's
great.
Discussion about that.
Yeah, that's really good. And that actually could be an entire presentation on its own.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A lot of these things could. So I'm actually going to kind of skip forward a little bit. So obviously, link text should be descriptive. Don't do click here, and we have UFixits for that as well. Let's see. So those are the big things I wanted to touch on. Now, we do also look for, because you can link to videos within your module itself rather than in a page, so we do check for those as well. And then, like I was saying before, UDOIT only scans HTML files, or HTML content, rather. So basically, that's anything that's in a page, a discussion topic, assignment, announcement, that kind of thing. Anything you can create with the rich content editor. But then anything else like Word documents, PowerPoint files, or PDFs, those show up here in the unscannable section. And we let you filter, we let you download the file directly from here, and you can also click to view the folder that file exists in. It even shows you what modules that file is used in. So we tried to give you everything you need here to determine, do I actually still need this file? Is it being used? And locating it very quickly so that you can have that PDF OCR'd or find an alternate source for it that already has a text layer. So, and then we have some quality of life features with UDOIT. You can save a report as a PDF if you like to keep an offline copy, and then you can also click View Old Reports, and you can see every single scan you've ever done of that course. So those are the big parts of UDOIT. I'm going to go back to the presentation here. Actually, we'll be sharing these slides after the presentation, and it actually has screenshots and notes for all of these. So if you missed the demo of this, you can still view it there. So let's go to the QA here.
Well, really quick, in the chat, I do have a question about the UDOIT tool that might be better asked now instead of at the end.
Okay.
Or you're up to Q&A.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Are there any plans to scan those types of files in the future, docs, PDFs, etc.?
Yes. So we already have some technology internally that can handle doc files, or docx files rather. And we've done some experimentation with inspecting PDFs. So those are the two that are likely to be scanned first. I don't want to promise anything though, because things can get difficult. You think it's going to be simple, and then it's not. So the that we'll probably do with PDF is just going to be seeing if there's a text layer. Because at least that'll throw up a red flag that, hey, you really do need to look at this PDF versus this other one. But of course, that text layer could only have one word in it, and it would still trip it up. So there's a lot of considerations there, but we are thinking about it.
Cool. I have a couple other questions coming in, and then I'm going to share some resources before we wrap up, but I want to get these questions in first while they're timely. So stick around if you don't have any questions, because there's still more resources coming. But Lori has a good question here. Are all reports automatically saved, or are they only saved when you consciously save them?
They are automatically saved. As soon as you click that scan button, like as soon as the scan completes, it's saved.
All right. And Heidi has a really good question. How does UDOIT compare to the accessibility checker that is currently available through the Canvas Rich Text Editor?
That is a really great question.
Yeah.
So currently, the Canvas Rich Text Editor or Rich Content Editor accessibility tool is only for a single page at a time. So we always encourage faculty to use that tool when they're creating content, or if they're going in and editing an individual page, they should use that tool to check up on that content. Because the best thing is to create it correctly the first time. You know, when you create it, do it right, and then hopefully we wouldn't even need UDOIT if we all did that. But then UDOIT is really good for, hey, I already have all this content created, or I've made a bunch of changes to my content over the last semester, and I want to make sure that I didn't introduce any accessibility issues. So it will scan the entire course, which is that's where the benefits break down there. Yeah.
Yeah. And Lori loves the autosave, so that was good news. And then I'm going to put this question out to the team here, but also if anybody on the webinar has any insight, I welcome you to put it into the chat. Looks like Palm Beach State is still on Blackboard. So we have a question. Does anyone know how UDOIT compares to Blackboard's Ally tool for those who are still on Blackboard?
Yeah, so the Ally tool, we've actually, I've talked to Nicholas, the guy who created Ally, and he's a great guy, and the tool is really awesome. So I'm not going to, you should definitely look at that if you're on Blackboard for sure. It is also available for Canvas, so I'll go ahead and put that out there. If you're interested in that, definitely do a comparison between Ally and UDOIT, and see what works best for your institution.
Cool. And Carlos has another question. This is great. We got lots of questions today. Carlos has a question about the color contrast tool. Does it tell you what level of compliance you're fixing it for, A, AA, or AAA?
I believe it was AAA for small text. I think it was the 4.5 to 1 is what that's the color contrast ratio we were going for. But off the top of my head, I forget exactly which part of the standard that came from.
Okay, so that was 4.5, you said.
I believe it was.
All right. And Dale is back to Ally. Does anybody know if that's free?
Ally is definitely not free.
Not free.
Yeah, and I realized I didn't quite answer the question about comparing Ally and UDOIT. They work in kind of different ways. Ally is more of in the background, constantly looking at your content. Whenever new content is uploaded, it looks at it. It was really focused in the beginning on alternate formats. So if you had a PDF, it would convert it into a text file and an audio file and an ebook or an EPUB or whatever, so that students could have alternate formats. But they have been moving into the HTML accessibility realm recently. But unfortunately, I haven't looked at the tool recently to be able to make a fair comparison there.
I just would throw in one other difference, at least in terms of our development of UDOIT, has been we really want faculty to be empowered with knowledge of what they need to be doing and not doing. So, I don't really know enough about Ally, but as far as I understand, that's more external reporting in, whereas UDOIT is more internal reporting to the faculty or designer directly.
Right. Yeah. Ally also has a lot of tools for administrators and higher ups to check on, basically like a pulse check for their university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is awesome, but it's just a different angle.
Yeah.
Looking at it. Yeah.
Cool. And Heidi has another question. Does UDOIT need to be implemented for the entire university at the system level, or can you add it to specific courses?
You can add it to specific courses, and that's actually what we recommend if you're piloting it. You can also add it to a sub-account. So let's say you only want your accounting classes to have you do it or something. You can basically install it wherever you want.
Cool. Well, that's all the questions we have in the chat at the moment, so I invite y'all to continue to post your questions, and then I'm going to continue, and we'll come back to this too. We've got some links here, and we've got our contact info, but that's okay. I wanted to quickly share a couple additional resources with you that we have available through TopKit. Hopefully you've at least heard of TopKit at this point. It's our Teaching Online Preparation Toolkit, and this was built for UIDs. This was a state-level initiative that was funded by the state university system, but for all public institutions in the state of Florida. So that includes the state college system as well. And part of our proposal was to make it free to the world as well. So while it's focused on Florida, we did start to build an online community here that is open to anybody. So it's totally free and out there for you. But the intended audience is for those who train faculty, provide faculty development, or support for online teaching. So while faculty can find this helpful, the intent is really to provide the focus on you who are preparing faculty for online. So a couple things that I wanted to point out on this site, if you're not familiar with it, are number one, we mentioned earlier, I think it was Karen that mentioned earlier, there are specific pages in here dedicated to this topic. So under the developing menu, there's a section called Content Considerations, and you'll see there's a whole page dedicated to ADA and a whole page dedicated to UDL. When you go to those pages, there are all kinds of resources for you instructional designers or you who are preparing faculty to use when working with faculty. And then also at the bottom of each of these pages, there's right in that same page, there's an ongoing discussion about that topic. So we would encourage you to join the conversation, maybe add any additional resources that may not be on the page yet that we can consider adding, ask questions of your peers related to that topic. So there's a whole discussion at the bottom of each of these pages on both UDL and ADA. So I'd encourage you to check that out. Related to that, we also have a complete community of practice for other issues that are just related to preparing and supporting faculty for teaching online. So I would encourage you to go out there as well. You can ask questions of the community. Maybe you're struggling with a particular scenario that you want to run past your peers, or you can also share an effective practice related to what we're talking to today. We had a really great conversation going on about captioning. I would encourage you to go out there and share what you do related to captions, or ask questions that are in more levels of detail than what we had time for today. Put it out there, please. And I'm so glad, Laurie, that you're asking about the Innovation Summit, because that was one of the other things I wanted to talk about. You'll see here on the homepage, we are promoting 2 events that are coming up in March. And we specifically put them back to back. They're both being hosted here in Orlando on the UCF campus. And they're back to back so that if you're interested, you can come to one or the other or stay for both. So the TopKit workshop, we're now on our 3rd year. This is paid for by the state. So it's free for anybody who is part of the state university system or part of the state college system. But then also for a small registration fee, it's open to others to come join us as well. So we're in our 3rd year there. The Innovation Summit is brand new, and that is open to a much wider audience. So while the TopKit workshop is focused on those who provide faculty development for online, the Innovation Summit is open to everybody who may be involved in some kind of an innovation project related to online or digital learning. So faculty would be a primary audience there, instructional designers, administrators even. So the Innovation Summit on the 7th is a little bit more of a broader audience, but both are related. Both would be ideal events for you to come to as instructional designers. So we encourage you to join us in March. And you can certainly click either one of these links for more detailed information. Both of them currently have a call for proposals out. So we would encourage you to submit a proposal and come join and share and present instead of just being an attendee. We would love to hear from you. And then the last thing that I wanted to share out here is under developing, we also have some sample courses out here. So if you are looking to either build a new faculty development program or enhance your existing faculty development, or maybe add a workshop on a particular topic, we have sample courses here that you can download as IMS course cartridges that you can upload into Canvas or any other LMS actually, that have been genericized for anyone to use. So they're not UCF specific, but they're based on our IDL 6543 10-week course. And you'll see that there's a whole module in there related to accessibility and UDL. So if you wanted to either make use of the entire course or just that module, you could download that course cartridge and repurpose under Creative Commons license any of the content that we put out there that we use to prepare our faculty. So lots of resources available to you. We continue to add to this site, but certainly through the community, we're looking to you to add resources that we can share and put out there for everybody. So with that, I think we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any final comments or questions you'd like to put in the chat? Otherwise, and yeah, as we're doing that, we'll pull up our contact info and some of those links. Notice the Top Kit link is at the bottom, along with some other links specific about UDOIT.
I'm grateful we have this opportunity
Yeah.
to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, thank you so much. This was really great.
All right, Tom, I guess we'll turn it back to you then. Thank you so